Welcome back, everyone, to the Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization Show, the home of Googlization Nation, where we talk with HR and business thought leaders about the crazy, never normal shift going on all around us. Our goal is to bring you ways to reimagine tomorrow and explore the ever-changing convergence of people, business, and technology. Here is your host, Ira Wolf.
Well, welcome back, everyone, to the Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization Show. For the next few minutes, I want you to imagine yourself going back in time. The year is 1956, almost 69 years ago. And you are the exuberant recipient of the very first commercial hard drive, the IBM Model 350. It has the unimaginable capacity to store up to 3.75 megabytes of data. For those of you not good with math or computer talk, that's the equivalent of one high-resolution photo taken with your smartphone, maybe a few minutes of an audio message you left for someone, or a single Word doc. It stood 5 feet high by 6 foot wide, and it weighed 1 ton and was leased for $750 a month. Now, let's fast forward to today. A 128 gigabyte SD card, the storage device that is about the size of your thumbnail, weighing 2 grams maybe, it costs about $20. It holds 34,000 high-quality photos, 128,000 MP3 songs, or 34,000 copies of that same Word document. You could buy a 1 terabyte external hard drive, which would store over 250,000 times the storage of the IBM hard drive for $100. Now, let's continue on our time journey. Let's imagine ourselves 69 years into the future, which would take us to 2093. How will our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren look back at 2025? And more specifically, how will they look back at technologies like AI, blockchain, and quantum computing? Well, I couldn't be more thrilled today to welcome back my favorite future strategist and Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization alumni, John-Sanei, to help us understand and navigate the journey ahead of us. John-Sanei is a global futurist. He's the best-selling author and has been recognized as one of the world's top 10 futurist professionals of 2024. He's got 11 books to his name, 5 of them bestsellers. John helps Fortune 100 companies, governments, and royal families rethink the future and navigate human AI dynamics. He's the co-host of the 2 times award-winning podcast, The Expansive, a contributor to NASA's Vision 2040 project. Yes, that's the one building a self-sustained city on the moon, and serves on the faculty at Singularity University, Duke Corporate Education, and the Copenhagen Institute for Future Study. When it comes to making sense of what's next, John is the voice you want guiding you through the noise. John, it's great to see you back on the GGG stage. Happy New Year. Congrats on an amazing 2024 year.
Thank you very much. And thank you so much for the intro. And awesome to be back with you again, Ira. You're getting younger every year.
Well, as I say, it's the millennial and the baby boomer body. I'm not the baby boomer body is starting to feel the baby boomer age. So, but I appreciate it, John. Thank you very much. So, you did have an amazing year. We talked a little bit before the show how you traveled, but I wanted to set the stage. That idea, after reading some of your what your plans are for 2025, was trying to look forward. One of my biggest struggles has been helping people understand the scale, the scope, the pace, the acceleration of the change. There's something of, I don't think he's related to your friend and colleague, Eric Kruger, but Dunning-Kruger effect is that our ability, our cognitive bias to overestimate our ability and overconfidence in our ability to adjust, to adapt at any skill. I see this continually. So I see this with business people. I see this with the students that I have. What's your experience been? I mean, how are you're speaking to all these leaders around the world, and they're, I can see the engagement from your video and the enthusiasm. But that almost seems to be like a small segment of the population that gets it. And everybody else is just, yeah, don't worry about it. We've been through this before. I've lived through this before. How are you dealing with it?
Well, I think the reality is 10 years ago, I used to be trying to convince people to accept the exponentiality of the growth, but nobody was. Just as you are frustrated, so was I. So I stopped doing that. I started to try and help people understand what's stopping them from accepting exponentiality.
Mm-hmm.
And that becomes the key, because I think often what happens is when we start telling them about the things that are coming, it actually scares them more than them not knowing. So what I did was I actually stopped doing that. And sometimes when I go to some futurist talk, that's all they're doing. They're actually scaring the audience to death. And so like, I don't understand what the process is there. But I think the most important thing is to try and give people the understanding of why, and two, how you could change the ability to engage with this information more openly and more optimistically. And we've spoken about this before on the web, on the podcast. But just to recap, our educational system over the last 200 years has prioritized efficiency and repetition over any sort of adaptability and experimentation. And school has forced us to fit into a system, and that system itself is starting to dissolve around us in real time. And this is creating extra panic, because what people have been trained into is now not becoming relevant anymore. So now you have a double panic, right? What I've been trained in is not relevant, and the new world is coming. Now both of those things are scaring me into a place of fright or flight, and I'm not actually reacting in any way, which is what we're seeing in the world today. And the great quote that comes to mind is, complexity is the enemy of execution, where we are dealing with such complexity that no execution happens whatsoever. So first off, let's understand why you can't adapt. And the reason you can't adapt is because the educational system has created a brain inside your head that doesn't want you to adapt. So let's understand why. It's not you, it's the way you've been trained, the software that's been loaded up into you. And two, it's also necessary for us to understand that to be able to deal with uncertainty and the unknown in an optimistic way is the only thing you could do to prepare for what's coming. You can't actually prepare with a mind focused on efficiencies, profitabilities, and outcomes at all costs, and then deal with the amount of massive change that's around us and coming up for us, because this software and this brain doesn't know how to deal with that. You almost have to change the interface, the brain process, where you start to deal with uncertainty with optimism, and that all of it comes down to a calm nervous system. All of it comes down to the ability to emotionally regulate yourself. And when you're able to emotionally regulate yourself and calm your nervous system, you then have got the energy and the curiosity to deal and engage with things that you don't quite understand. When you are only looking for certainties, when you're anxious, when you're impatient, when you're focused on outcomes, there is no program interface that's asking you to engage with uncertainty with optimism. So you've actually got to move the conversation away from exponentiality, away from technology, and start to hone in and magnify the technology that's within us that needs to change. And this has been a journey for me, because I, like many futurists, started off talking about drones and AI and quantum, and now I do very little of it in my talks, because I don't think anybody in the world doesn't know it's coming. Everybody knows it's coming. So it's like, that's not new anymore. Whereas we used to be very excited to hear that there was going to be drone taxis, or there was going to be, those are such exciting stories. Now we're like, yeah, we've seen them online, we've seen them in social media. The only thing that we're hearing is that AI is coming to eat our lunch right in front of our eyes. So we're a little bit petrified by that. And so the point of my work and my research and my new book coming out is called Future Memories, is how do you start going about relaxing the nervous system to start to engage with this level of uncertainty and new intelligence with as calm an approach as possible, with a curious mind and an optimistic approach.
John, I love the fact, and I did see that title of the book. I think Shams, your assistant, sent that over to me, Future's Memory. And that's when we first met, it was right during the pandemic, and the pandemic had so many. I don't want to lighten the load on this, but benefits. I'm not sure you and I would have had the engagement we did, other than we were stuck in our offices, in a room. You were in South Africa, I'm in Wind Gap, Pennsylvania. Figuring out what are we going to do, because we're not traveling, our schedules were canceled, and we had this opportunity to really chat and spend some time and get to know one another. And I sort of miss those times.
Yes, me too.
But you had so many great comments, and the one was that we were addicted to certainty. That you came up with. The other one was that we were mourning the loss of future memories.
Well, people weren't. I was explaining that they should mourn the loss of their future memories. Yes, that's right.
Well, I'm not so sure that they weren't. We had weddings, we had celebrations, we had graduations. We had 5 milestone birthday parties planned that year.
Wow.
And they all went up in smoke. We had a 90, a 40, a 70.
Wow.
They all went up in smoke. And so there was a loss of future memories, with that. As let's talk a little bit about that. What's the book about? Where you're headed with that? How does that fit into this picture? So
right, great. Yeah. So the thing is, we've just had the Google come out with the quantum chip, telling us that there's 2 parallel realities available at the same time. And this is fundamentally different from what we've ever believed, because our 5 senses have kept us trapped into believing that there's only one reality happening at a time. But I don't even think there's 2 realities. I think there's an infinite of realities happening, because that's what quantum science actually tells us, that reality around us is 99% empty, pregnant with potential. And our inability to tap into those other aspects of ourselves, the other potentials, is really what's keeping us stuck in this perpetual cycle that we are recycling over and over and over. So I'm so happy that Google has launched this quantum computer chip to give the naysayers out there the science-based facts that now there's parallel realities out there. In fact, I saw the other day, it's funny how people that use Wi-Fi don't think that it's woo-woo, but when you think about energies and quantum, you think it's woo-woo. But Wi-Fi is woo-woo because it's in thin air, but it's working. So does everything else. But because our brains don't allow us to think like that. So the book is very much based on one very clear premise, is that neuroscience is proving to us that we have between 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day. And our brains have concrefied into a personality trait and personality type by the time we're 35 years old. And what happens to us is we keep reliving the same life, because 90% of our thoughts are the same as they were yesterday. And this inability to move away from living out past memories and past traumas is keeping us stuck. And so the book is about, how do we move the pendulum from making decisions about who we were to making decisions about who we want to become? And this swing is an incredibly important skill to build in the times of transformation that we're in right now. Because in order for us to truly transform, we have to truly let go of who we were. And you teach innovation and you teach entrepreneurship. And I'm sure one of the aspects of your subjects are innovation is a lot to do with what you subtract, not just add. And if you think about that in our own psyches and our own preparation for this uncertainty that lies ahead of us, requires us to move this pendulum from who we were to who we want to become. And that actually means that you're creating a more adaptable brain. And this requires brain gym. And brain gym is meditation, but not just normal meditation, active meditation. And in active meditation, what you start to do is you start to rewire the brain, creating new neurons and new pathways based and developed on who you're wanting to become. And I've been an advanced meditator for 5 or 6 years now, and anything over 60 minutes is kind of named advanced. I'm at about 2 hours a day. And in these 2 hours, what I'm doing is I'm able to now silence the chatter. And once the chatter is silenced, then start to imagine and project into my future the type of persona, personality, and emotion and reality I want to create. And what I'm doing here is rewiring my brain, developing a personality based on where I'm going and not where I've been.
So many threads we can pull on that. So it sounds like you wrapped it up. I mean, the one thing would be we have the ability not just to learn. So I know some people would put this in the context of how do you teach people to learn to be adaptable?
Right.
And where it's really the reverse. It's how do we teach people to unlearn what they did before? So the neuroscience and the science, that everything that we're learning is that the old myth of you can't teach an old dog new tricks was a myth and a lie.
That's right.
And harmful.
Yes, very harmful.
We're just too old to be able to do that.
But it takes work, Ira. It takes a lot of work.
And that's the problem. That may be the problem. You know, it may not be why can't people change. It's like, why won't they do the work? So when you're meeting these groups, so you're speaking to a lot of leaders, you're speaking to a lot of audiences. When they leave you and they go back to their daily lives and the chaos and the dysfunction and all those things, what's your recommendation? How do you help? What are the first steps they should take to stay on track? And again, realizing this isn't an overnight transformation. This is a journey. You're talking about, you know, I've known you for 4 years, and you're talking over the last 10 or 15 years. How do they start? What's the first step in their journey, and what's your advice for them to continue on that?
Well, there's many different steps. The first one is to become aware of the fact that there's an ability to change, and the fact that you're repeating your ideas. 90% ideas are being repeated daily. Right. And if they start reflecting on their world, they realize that they're living the same life over and over and over and over, having similar thoughts, similar behaviors, similar actions, right? So that's step one, awareness of the fact that the behavior is like that. Many people are not even aware of that. Right. The second thing is to realize that your personality has been developed by your memories, and your memories are subjective stories that you've decided to hold on to and even dramatize at some time, because when you think back on some of your memories and you're maybe frustrated or tired or hungry, or it's compounded for some reason or another, and you want to feel extra angry, you dramatize that memory. And so many of your memories are actually false. They're not actually real. And so the first step is, how do you pick up a habit or a behavior or a ritual where you start to look at many of your memories and traumas and start to heal them? Now, there's many different ways to do this. Everything from family constellations, which is an amazing platform or process that people follow, to psychotherapy, to psychedelics, to ayahuasca. All of these modalities are able to help you understand that many of your memories are just subjective stories that don't necessarily aid you and don't necessarily help you in evolving your personality. So one, clean out your past, do the trauma healing, get rid of anything that's holding you stuck into old ways of behaving and old ways to get triggered. So a great way for you to want to understand this is, how can you create a personality that's got no triggers? And you realize that every trigger that you have is a protective mechanism from a trauma that you've had as a child that is still coming to the surface to want to keep and protect you. That's all it is. And so when you start to understand that it's a simplified 6-year-old trying to simply protect you, you can now start to engage with it in a very different way. So I have processes for that in the book as well. And so that's something to do. The second thing is to understand that your ability to be adaptable is only linked to the way your brain operates. If you have a brain that's stuck in repetition, you aren't able to be adaptable. So you have to ask yourself, how do I create more adaptability in my mind? And the number one way that you can create adaptability in your mind is meditation. And what meditation gives you is the opportunity to become fit in the way you think about the way you think. And it's just like going to gym. It's just like running. It's just like anything else. Your physical body requires that muscle building and flexibility to stay youthful and active. And what meditation has now been proven to do is grow your brain, literally grow your brain, to move it away from making decisions based on the past to making decisions about the future. This is a natural process. It releases all the sort of hooks from the past, and it also allows the brain to work more functionally as a whole system. And so that's meditation. 3 is, and I'm a big proponent of it, is psychedelic work, because what's happened in the past is that psychedelics have been somehow put into the category of cocaine and heroin and everything else. But really, psychedelics are plants from Mother Earth that were given to us to help us heal in many different ways. And more research is coming out on this across the world, where even Australia, which is one of the strictest countries in the world, is now using MDMA and magic mushrooms to heal people. And you think to yourself, well, there's a lot there that allows us to release a lot of old sort of stuckness. So 1, heal your past. 2, start a practice of meditation. And both of these things, if you think about what they do, is 1, they can release you from your past, and the other one increases your focus onto the future. And when you can start to practice these 2, you immediately start to walk away from the conference thinking, okay, I've got 2 things, just 2 things to do. That's all I have to do. And that becomes the practice that you want to start to pick up on.
So again, a whole lot of threads we can spend. We can spend hours. I know you spend days teaching this stuff. As a business leader, I'm the owner, I'm a CEO of a company. I understand that I need to provide an environment and support for my employees to become more adaptive, to be able to achieve the goals, to be able to seize these opportunities. And I know it's not the technology, and the technology seems dystopian at times, but the AI and the blockchain and the quantum computing and all these things that we seem to understand where it could take us and create this world of more of abundance and solve so many problems that are facing us, from climate change to cancer to water pollution and everything else. What's your advice for business leaders? I don't see them I don't see them saying, next week we're going to come in and we're going to do psychedelics.
Yeah, sure. Well, look, there is actually a huge number of organizations that are doing something called psychonaut tourism, where they're taking their boards and executives to Peru and Costa Rica to do ayahuasca. So it's a massively growing thing there. But let's step away from that. There's 2 things that I suggest that organizations do, and I've got 2 talks based on these 2 ideas. The first one is the simplification of artificial intelligence and the way that you're using it. So I've created something called the AI strategy scanner. And in the scanner, it's a circular scan with 4 different quadrants. And in it, what I'm trying to explain is where AI can help you in your organization. And when you look at your business through the scanner, it becomes very simplified in which part of your organization are you affecting using AI. For example, the bottom left-hand corner is all about bringing more efficiencies to existing business. This is really about today AI, and it's about the simplification of your existing systems. But on the top corner of the left corner is about tomorrow AI, and it's focused on your customers and creating patterns or finding patterns that can really revive and delight your customers using AI. Now, that's a very different task team with a very different budget, with maybe even a very different capability. The bottom right-hand corner is about doing AI for tomorrow and changing your core offering as a business. This is, again, a very different skill to bringing efficiencies to your current business, or even affecting how your customers engage with your business. The top right-hand corner is really the one that's about using AI to change a whole industry and really starting to think about things a way out in the box. Now, what's happened with most executives and leaders is that it's so complex, they've already bunched up all of these together and they don't know which one they're actually even doing. So, and also they'll say, it's IT. Let IT deal with AI and let me carry on doing what I'm doing, right? So what I'm trying to do is simplify in where are you playing with AI? In which quadrant are you in? And the minute I show them the quadrants, it relaxes them to realize that I'm only playing in that quadrant, or I only want to play in these 2 quadrants. I don't want to play in the other quadrants. Okay, then you now know. And now you can go about simplifying your strategic lens for AI. Step 2. What new capabilities are you engaging with to come into your organization to help you with this? Stop asking your existing people to think about this in as quicker terms as you need them to. That's the wrong thing to do. And that creates a schizophrenia and a panic amongst your people, because what you're doing is you're asking them to keep the lights on and plant seeds for tomorrow. Both be innovative and modify your existing systems and think outside the box and make your current business obsolete to create a new one. Like that's the dumb part. So what we've got to stop doing is firstly asking Serena Williams to now become a F1 driver. She only knows tennis. Let her play tennis. If you ask her to do F1 driver, she's going to do both terribly. So you got to build new capabilities, and you've got to dissect AI to make it a simplified in task teams of what you're doing with it and how you're bringing it into your business.
Brilliant. And my mind is meshing so many people that I know and have influenced me over the last few years. One is a gentleman named Ben Bensow. He's been on the show a few times. He actually guest lectures for my class. He wrote a book called Built to Innovate. His background was blue ocean strategy. So I'm sure you're familiar with
of course
it,
I know.
and many people are. But he differentiates between similar conversation to what we're having between innovation and innovating.
Okay, tell me.
He talks about innovation is fearful. When you talk about innovation, people go, I'm not that creative. Our industry is sort of an old standard, conservative. Is people shut down. Exactly what you're saying is they go to that one box, or they collate all the boxes, and it becomes way too complex. He talks about innovating. What you want to do is create an innovating culture.
Right.
What you want to do is everybody has the potential to innovate. A simple suggestion. He's worked with one of the companies he's worked with was something like with Bayer. And, initially everybody was fearful, and they had a box that they can put ideas. And when they changed the conversation from innovation to innovating, where everybody had an ability to innovate, to come up with a new idea, to change, to improve. It wasn't just innovation's improvement.
Of course.
It's just an improvement. It's not necessarily that the Steve Jobs, Elon Musk ideas. It's just an improvement. How can we make this better? How can we make it more efficient, more effective, whatever it is, cheaper, faster? They came up with 20 and 30,000 suggestions where the suggestion box was empty before. So very similar, process.
Look, I think that is absolutely necessary. There was a bank in South Africa called First National Bank, and they gave their employees a 1 million rand, which is the currency in South Africa, 1 million rand prize for any innovation that was introduced and adopted by the bank. And so they had a bottom-up approach to innovation, and anybody could apply for the competition, and it made a few millionaires. But I have one small caveat to that, is that innovation and disruption are very different things. Innovation is doing what you've always done, making it more modified, improving it, and bringing more efficiencies to it. Disruption is making your current business model obsolete to create a new business model.
Right.
And sometimes what happens is that the innovation is just not enough. You're playing it too within the structure. And I think pre-2018, pre-2020, maybe even, innovation was enough. I don't think it's enough anymore. I think that it doesn't matter how agile and innovative you are in the wrong direction, it just doesn't matter, because things are just changing it so rapidly and so foundationally.
Yeah, I had a conversation yesterday, and we'll need to hook you two up. Josh Dreen is his name.
Right.
He has a new book coming out, Employment is Dead.
Nice.
And it doesn't mean jobs, but again, traditional employment. And we can talk all day about higher education and employment and work and all those things. But he had a great statement in his new book. And the book was that the danger, I'm going to paraphrase it because I don't remember it word verbatim. The biggest danger we face is not being left behind. It's becoming irrelevant. And you just nailed it too. You just said it in a different way, is that innovation was enough in the past.
Nothing more.
But for many people and many organizations, they now need to become disruptive.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my new talk, AI Frontiers, I'm showing the difference between German car manufacturing and Chinese car manufacturing.
I saw a clip on that. It's brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a big problem because the very expertise and supply chain that was necessary for a combustion engine is vastly different to an engine that's not really the priority. It's a battery, and the supply chain to the battery and the computer. China's got that supply chain closed off. Like nobody can touch them on that supply chain, which means that Germany's cut at the ankles because they can't even create. I mean, who's making VW's batteries? China. Why? Because they don't have the actual manufacturing capabilities and capacity. And that is disruption. So you can be in Germany and innovate till the cows come home. You don't even have the supply chain or the battery expertise like China has been developing over the last 20 years to even compete. You're not even in the same field, let alone same stage. Like you're not even in the same playing arena. So disruption and innovation are very different, and we mustn't get trapped in the idea that innovation is enough. It really isn't.
I'm so happy that you brought that up and put that into perspective. I know we got to be sensitive to time. You just have a few more minutes with us. I always appreciate it. So let's start to wrap this up. You know, one of the questions that I always ask at the end is, what's the one thing that you wished I asked that I didn't?
That's such a hard question. I have no idea. I think that where we've come from is called economies of scale. And what we've all been trained in is economies of scale. Where we are now is economies of learning. It's how quickly can you learn to unlearn. The quicker you can do that, the better your economies are going to be. And I think over the next 5 to 10 years, when AI really starts to take form, we'll start to move into economies of consciousness. And which means that no matter how quick you learn or unlearn, AI is going to do it quicker and faster by a gazillion times, not just a little bit. And the only thing that's going to be
30 septillion.
Yeah, septillion. Yeah. And so the only thing that's going to be left for us is consciousness. It's our ability to connect with our consciousness in a deeper way without getting too esoteric, for us to really start to connect who we truly are. And I think the world of economies of scale and the world that we come from never celebrated who we were. And it's really, I think, the age of humanness is really birthing because of what AI is bringing to the table, forcing us to connect with our consciousness and forcing us to develop brand new ways to add value to the world where we think we have peaked, which we haven't. And if we think we've peaked, it's the height of arrogance in the ignorance to think that we've peaked using 5-10% of our brains, not even taking into consideration the power that our hearts have, the power that every other aspect of our consciousness has. So for me, the question you should have asked is, how will we add value in the world in the future? And my answer would be, we don't know yet, but it's not going to be called economies of scale. And it's definitely not going to be called economies of learning. It's going to be called the economies of consciousness.
Thank you for leaving it on a positive note. So we went from dystopian to an age of humanness, an age of consciousness.
Absolutely.
John, you're all over the place. I know people can link, and I highly recommend everybody link up with you on LinkedIn or anywhere, YouTube. You got tremendous videos. As I said, you create so much course content for me.
Thank you. That's so good to know.
I appreciate it. How else can they reach out to you? When's the book going to be available?
There's 2 books coming out this year on my podcast, The Expansive. We've got a new book coming out now in the next couple of months. Please join us on that podcast journey as well. And also the book is called Future Memories, coming out in September. But I'm constantly sharing. Ira is a wonderful friend and commentator on my posts on LinkedIn. So I'm on Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, and with the books coming out and the podcast. So I look forward to joining us on that journey.
Yeah, and I will put those links in the show notes for everyone. John, it's a pleasure. Happy New Year once again. Congrats on all your success. Looking forward to another awesome 2025 following you. Thanks very much.
And enjoy your cruise, Ira.
Yeah,
ciao.
Thanks very much.
Thanks for watching Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization. Be sure to listen to the podcast and follow us on YouTube.